Thank you, Senator Coons. Senator Cornyn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sergeant Penny, you talked about some of the anti-police rhetoric, the lack of respect for our men and women in blue, the role of some of the so-called progressive district attorneys that don't prosecute crimes. Some people are saying, well, we ought to eliminate legal protections, for example, like qualified immunity that protects police officers from civil lawsuits unless they do cross that line that they should not cross. But I'd like to suggest that this sort of attitude starts at the top. You may recall back in 2000, shortly after President Biden was elected president, he nominated Kristen Clark to be Associate Attorney General of the United States, headed the Department of Justice, the significant portion of the Department of Justice, who wrote an article in 2020 entitled, "I Prosecuted Police Killings, Defund the Police, but Be Strategic." Also, President Biden nominated, and the Senate confirmed without my vote, Vanita Gupta, who at various times in her previous capacity advocated not only defunding the police. Now, she said that was for the organization she represented and not her personal view. She also advocated for eliminating qualified immunity and for decriminalizing drugs. The Washington Post fact-checked Vanita Gupta's testimony at her confirmation hearing and gave her they concluded, for this tango of previously unacknowledged flip-flops, Gupta earns an upside-down Pinocchio. So do you believe, Sergeant Penny, it's important for the leadership of the law enforcement community to send a clear message of support for law enforcement as opposed to blaming them first?
Absolutely, Senator. First of all, let me say, in response to the leaders, especially our leaders of Congress and our president as well, who has promoted this idea of defunding the police. Sometimes you have individuals, the king in the high castle sometimes forget how things really work in the real world because they're so disconnected from the people. And unfortunately, this type of messaging is the type of messaging that allows individuals that are actually out there to become vulnerable to certain attacks. So I will say this, Senator. The bottom line is we cannot allow our police officers to not be protected. We cannot allow certain messages to be put into American society that's going to allow us to be attacked just because of the job that we do. And unfortunately, so many people out here have convoluted these arguments about what it means to protect police with gun rights and all this other stuff that has nothing to do. We're talking about human behavior, individuals that are going out to attack police officers simply because of the job that they do, simply because of the uniform that they wear. Enough is enough. We got to stop linking all these things together and start doing the right thing to protect the interests of our American government. We've given up too much, Senator. And I will add that the cities that did defund the police, we saw $150 million from Austin, Texas, right there in Texas. What is Austin going through right now? An increased level of violence. We saw that same thing in Baltimore, $22 million taken from the police. We saw an increased level of violence. We saw it in Philadelphia, $33 million taken from the police. What did we see? An increased level of violence. Guys, this doesn't work, and we need to do it. We need to fix it right here in this committee. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Sergeant. Sheriff Bouchard, good to see you again. Thank you for being here. I want to talk a little bit about the nexus between drugs, guns, and violence in our communities. Last year alone, 108,000 Americans died of drug overdoses. Almost all of those drugs come across the border in my state, in Texas, from Mexico or other countries south, or even the precursors, as you know, from China, which are used to make synthetic opioids like fentanyl. Would you agree with me that the distribution network whether it's in Minnesota or any state we could identify here, is primarily through criminal street gangs who then protect their market share and their territory using guns and committing other crimes of violence? Would you make that connection between the border, drugs, and violence in our local communities?
Thank you, Senator. Yes, and on so many levels, we agree with that statement. The Major County Sheriffs of America is very firm in belief we need to secure our borders. We believe the immigration system needs to be fixed to help people that want to come here for the right reasons and want to come here for a better life, but we need to have a process to make sure that that border is secure to prevent what's happening there. The flood of drugs across the border. I run one of the largest narcotics enforcement team consortiums in our state, and we're seeing a tremendous amount of fentanyl. Last night, we saved 3 people from drug overdoses. My deputies have deployed Narcan. I was the first in the state to save lives with that. And as you said, oftentimes we see drug dealers that are willing and actively prepared to use violence to protect their turf. I received a text on the way into this hearing that my narcotics enforcement teams asked for SWAT potential support on a raid today because the suspect is a career felon that is known to carry firearms and is willing to use them.
Senator